Good Wednesday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate, life, and the pursuit of happiness. The Wednesday edition, presented by Ross Mortgage and the fantastic Scott Morris. Scott, a friend of the program.
Scott Mortgage works also.
Scott, that could be your nickname.
You need to use it. That's fine.
That could be his nickname.
I bet you got a tattoo in there that says that.
Scott is just A-plus people, and we love having him on the show. Keith Smith, we love as well. Gentlemen, 3 questions, and we have yet to start the program already.
Isn't this great?
For you guys. So first, we'll give a plug again for Ross Mortgage and Scott Morris, the name and the brand you need to call, guys, if you're trying to get into the space. What do you have? The entire Mid-Atlantic? Is it North Carolina and Virginia you service?
I service, the companies, Florida, Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. Yeah, we're all over the East Coast.
So we got the distinguished gentleman, and we may have dubbed a new nickname for Scott Mortgage Morris here on Real Talk. Judah Wickhauer's Alfred. I'm Robin. All right, gentlemen, where do we want to begin here? Maggie Gunnels of the Gunnels team had some topics that came up on Monday that I think we should start upon.
Yeah.
Keith Smith.
So I think a great place to start, first and foremost, for the normal introduce yourself and to the folks that are viewing and listening, and then we'll jump into maybe the 5 things to avoid during the mortgage process.
Yeah, definitely. Scott Morris, Ross Mortgage. I grew up in Fluvanna. I spent a lot of time in Charlottesville. I live in Culpeper. I've got 3 little kids. My goal is to really just help as many people into the home ownership process as possible with refinance, whatever you need financially. I'm here to give you some sort of help and advice for. And ultimately, make good connections with people and serve people at a super high level.
So on Monday, if you wouldn't mind tagging Maggie Gunnels on that, Maggie was talking about, and it made us think about today's show, and what we can talk a little bit about. Maggie was mentioning that there was a deal falling apart on her end because the buyer made a couple of mistakes. I think
she wasn't representing the buyer.
She was representing the seller.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
We have to emphasize that.
Thank you for keeping me straight, sir. So was representing the seller, so the buyer on the other side was making some mortgage mistakes during the process, and it made me think about this would be a great topic to talk about today. So, from your perspective, I'm now a borrower. We filled out the application. We put a contract on a home. What am I not supposed to be doing? And what should I be doing?
So in our what I'll call our goal conversation, I'm also going to go over some things that you should try to avoid. One of them is going to be opening any new lines of credit or making any large purchases once we've... Now, not to say that it can't be done, but let's just make everyone aware so we have an idea of how that could possibly affect your situation before it actually affects your situation. You're going to go through things, cars are going to break down, you're going to have, state inspections, you need tires, you're going to have to go, kids get sick. Stuff happens. But if we can execute a plan to protect your contract and your home purchase when this is happening, or even if you haven't gone under contract and you're just in the pre-approval process, this is a first step to making sure that we've done the due diligence to protect you on our end.
How could it get to the point where a potential buyer who's got a pre-qual letter is opening up massive lines of credit, buying cars during this process? I mean, I hate to say that this seems like common sense, but it obviously is not common sense.
It's not, because people don't understand without being given the knowledge that going and purchasing a car could affect purchasing their house. To them, it's 2 separate things. If I've been approved for the house, why can't I go buy a car?
And it's not even that big, right? I mean, it could be jewelry, it could be an
appliance. I think in this
appliance.
particular circumstance, it was furnishing home.
Oh,
so going to a furniture store and spending 5 figures on...
Oh, yeah, that was my daughter who did that.
Okay, that's what it was for there.
Yeah.
But in that scenario, that was cash. But the furnishing the home evidently is
popular.
I
mean, if somebody goes and opens a $20,000 line of credit to fill a house up with furniture, and now we've got to count that debt against their future debt to income.
Oh, and then they get all excited. I just opened up a 0% interest.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but the 0% interest is not your issue. The fact that you just now committed to $20,000 is the issue.
Absolutely. And so not just, to me, the big ones aren't just opening lines of credit. That's something I think, if well educated in the beginning of the process, people will understand. Two of the big ones are, for me, job changes, and I've got another one, credit cards. Where are we a little further?
Yeah. So the big ones are no major purchases.
Yeah.
Right. Don't open up a new credit card. Right, even if it's 0%, or I've had clients come back to me and say, but I'm transferring a balance.
Moving money. So yeah, moving money and jobs to me are the two that I have, if you're doing these things for your benefit in purchasing or making your life better. For instance, I had someone, a recent VA purchase, he's had several jobs in the last year and a half to begin with, and then 2 weeks into being under contract, quits his current job. Without and having to complete a training process for the future job that he's taking on. So luckily we had a seller who was agreeable to the situation. We delayed things 45 days and he went through the training process.
That's a huge ask in today's market.
It was a huge ask.
That's a huge ask.
He went through his training out in California, came back, and is working for a private security firm, super high level, enjoying what he does for the first time in a long time, and making more money. So that worked out, but it doesn't always work out. So not that I would have had to say, don't do this, but you've got to be committed to, if doing this prevents you from getting the house, which one of these things is more important? Can we delay the new job for 30 days? Is that a possibility?
So what I coach folks to do is once we're under contract and once you make this loan application with Scott, literally don't do anything fiscal without either talking to Scott or myself, right? Because even something as silly as moving money around internally within accounts.
Yeah, let's say you've got an account that you've deposited, let's say you've got two jobs, and or you've got let's say you're self-employed on some level, you've got a business, you sell stuff on Etsy, but you haven't been doing it for that long, and you've got some cash transactions that come into an account just for that. But we've identified that we can't source all of that money and we can't use it for the mortgage purchase, but you're transferring money from that account into an account that we've already sourced funds and determined to be sufficient for underwriting standards. We may not, and if you have a big need, I may want you just spending money directly out of that account rather than actually taking money from one place and putting it into another, and now we have to see all of these bank statements that could cause some concerns in underwriting.
I had somebody a couple of years ago go out and decide before they moved into their home to take a big 2-week vacation and kind of booked it from the time that we signed the contract to that, and this was a big vacation, and it actually became an issue at the back end when we were trying to close it, because so everybody understands, you run all your data in the front end, all your requests in the front end, you also redo it just before you close, right? So you might want to talk a little bit about that, because that's where all this gets caught. Right?
Sure, yeah, because we're going to be updating documents to make sure that you've got adequate funds to close prior to actually closing. So if you go out and decide that, here's one that I've seen before that's kind of, instead of coming up with the cash for a down payment, someone would go and take out a private loan, like for $15,000, and you say, well, I'm just going to use this money for my down payment now. It's like, that's an unsecured loan that we can't.
A private loan.
Like a unsecured, like they go to the bank and say, your credit's good enough, I want to borrow $15,000. And they say, here's $15,000, and then they want to take the $15,000 and then make that their down payment.
So let's talk about down payment for a minute, because it's important to talk about the sources where that comes from, because some of it has to be seasoned, some of it does not need to be seasoned. How does that work under a typical loan process?
So any money that shows up into your bank account inside of 2 months statements would need to be seasoned funds, meaning that, the 2 months would season the money. But if it shows up on those accounts, for instance, if your dad gave you $10,000 to buy a house in January, but your dad refuses to give a bank statement to source the money, then we would probably need to wait until March to make an offer so that we would have a clean 30-day statement from February and March to close in April so that we could actually source the money.
So I usually tell people 90 days just to give a little bit more of a runway on that stuff. But it was interesting because I was reading what Ross Mortgage puts out about the 5 things, and even like $1,000 movement within accounts.
This is kind of what I was talking about with the Etsy thing. So, and less than, and $300 can, if you're Virginia Housing and you're going for one of those loans and you move more than $300, they're going to want to source that money.
Good night.
Best advice is do nothing until you close, and then after you close.
Best advice
Yeah.
is talk to Scott.
Yeah.
Just make sure that if anything's going to happen, just bring it up. Like, there's no point in hiding something that's going to come up and then we have to deal with it after the fact. If we can get in front of the problem, we can probably come up with a solution rather than having to react to what's already occurred.
How detailed is the analysis of statements? I mean, every single.
Pretty detailed.
Yeah, everything.
When it comes to the amount of money, like, it also depends. Like, if you're self-employed and we've got, here's something I really encourage: a business bank account and a personal bank account separate from one another. Because there are people, depending on their level of business, they run everything through the same account, which can get super messy when it comes to trying to show what's clean and what's not, how something got there, especially if you don't receipt everything. Having a business bank account and a personal bank account to separate for a self-employed person is key.
About this question that's come in, is it easier with the refinance process if someone has massive equity in their home, especially after 2 years of COVID and this housing surge, versus a whole first-time home buyer that's trying to get a loan to purchase a house for the first time?
Yeah, I may not even need to use bank accounts for a refinance, depending on their situation.
Why is that? Just because of massive equity?
Because they're not gonna have to bring any money to close, so I don't have to show that they're not going to bring any funds into the transaction, so I don't have to show where the money's coming from.
Interesting.
Different on a cash out refi? I'm asking that.
That's a good question.
I'm asking that from a personal perspective.
So we've got to show a number of months of reserves in that case. So if there's a savings account where there's not a lot of transactions that already exist, that we can show we've got 6 months of reserves sitting in this account that the client has access to, that's everything that we would need. The ultimate goal, my ultimate goal anyways, is to get through the process with the minimum amount of documentation from you to create as little problem in underwriting through the process as possible.
Right. So how about this topic here? The refinance that's not the cash out refinance, just the refinance to get better rate. Is that the easiest process for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not even close?
Not even close. And then if you're a veteran and we could even do a VA IRL, an interest rate reduction loan, meaning that there's very little that I actually have to show in your ability to.
So do I need to
qualify.
be in the VA loan system, or can
You already have to have a VA loan in order to move to do an interest rate reduction loan.
So you would have to refi into VA, then be in VA for a while to qualify?
Or have already purchased VA and
Got
then,
it.
yeah.
Got it.
So Joanne's got a couple comments. Joanne, we love when you watch the program here. This is in regards to the Waynesboro sizzle reel from last week
Okay.
that she's interacting with. Joanne is, again, one of Keswick's finest here. She says, see the gas prices this morning? These areas need to develop business centers. She's talking Waynesboro. I can deduct real estate taxes and mortgage interest, but not the cost to commute to Charlottesville. Please discuss this. Also discuss commercial development if that's dead now. New York is dropping mask mandates, dropping cases as well as desire if commercial real estate to use the buildings for employees returns. Ray Cadell, welcome to the program. Long and Foster, hello and welcome to the show. And multiple agents at Ness. Where do you want to start with Joanne Mackey's comments there, Scott?
I mean, yes, on the commute and the expense, but depending on what you do, you may be able to use mileage, and if the more and more we're moving to go buy a Chevy Volt, and you've got a gas hybrid or a Hyundai that's doing a gas hybrid combination to where your fuel expense is going to be minimal in that commute. I mean, but it's different for everybody. So
We've been talking about that for quite some time, what the impact of gas prices are going to have on the other side of the mountain.
and the work from home.
And correct. And this conversation, Jerry and I started before COVID. And I think COVID's really changed that with this whole work from home. There's an interesting comment about the Waynesboro market on the other side. If you take a look at what's happening in the development going over there, there's much more industrial, there's much more business, there's much more commercial that is being built on that side of the mountain, which would help offset the tax rate.
Well, they've got that. They're right there at that 6481 hub, and I was in Roanoke yesterday, and
For work or pleasure?
work, and just connecting with some people, and the tractor. I'd say this like I'm surprised. The tractor trailer traffic on 81 is bonkers. So, and it's good to see, which tells me that maybe the supply chain thing is, there's definitely stuff moving around.
And you got a big truck.
I did not drive my big truck.
Oh, you did not?
No,
So you got a commuter car for that trip?
Yeah, I've had I've got a Hyundai Genesis that's, kind of takes me everywhere I go.
Are you doing 40 a gallon there?
Yeah,
40
probably.
Versus with the truck?
20, I would imagine.
Oh, that's not bad.
The truck, 20's not bad at all.
Yeah,
bad
I'm
at all.
probably lucky.
I think that's a bit generous over there.
It's a bit
I think
generous.
maybe that's wishful thinking. Is what that is.
That's what I tell myself it is.
Scott Morris is good people. Okay, so more comments coming in. We have to talk about the tax rate. We now have 3 people.
Sure.
I mean, it was on the front page of the Progress.
Yeah, sure.
And Joanne's got the follow-up. You got the question from Charlottesville. You got the question from Grayson, who's a regular listener. I'm sure Bills wants us to get to the tax rate here. It was the lead article in the Daily Progress. 10-cent real estate tax rate increase advertised, Scott Morris, at the same clip of 12% assessment increases and 7% inflation trending. At the same time, rates are going up. I mean, we don't expect and I'm not pointing fingers, Keith. I follow your rules. We don't expect elected officials to be economists,
Sure.
but we certainly, hope they follow storylines.
Sure.
And KPIs would be interest rates going up, 12% assessments, 12% increase in assessments. Inflation has obviously been talked about for how long now? A year at least?
Transitory. It's transitory.
It's transitory. It's been transitory for 14
12 months is
here.
transitory now?
14 months of transitory.
I've said
inflation.
if the timeline is long enough, anything is transitory.
That's okay. It's all relative, Scott Morris says. 10-cent tax rate increase. I mean, where do we want to begin here?
So you got to think about, to me, there's so many layers to this. One, you're pricing out your bottom end. You're making things less affordable for affordable housing and the people who need it. And then you've got your super high end buyer doesn't care, that's not who is going to be affected, but your middle class who's making a decision on where those monies are best spent. Are you driving them to your area based on if they look a county over and say, wow, we could make this work and not have to be there and pay this money, That's a decision that I would personally, that's a driving factor for me. But that's just an opinion.
I think it's a good opinion. Keith?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was reading an article this morning on Risk Media, making it double. Affordability is a twofold crisis. So instead of affordable housing, I prefer to use the word housing affordability. And I was just reading it quickly, and to Scott's point, and this is a national take a look at this thing, but lower income people overall, they're kind of staying the same, right? That this is not helping the lower level income producer income folks to buy or even to rent for that matter at that end of it. So it's an interesting issue that these folks are going to have to face. You know, I've been doing this for a real long time. Generally, when they advertise a rate, it's kind of what it is. So everybody understands the process.
Yeah.
It could go lower, but they advertise it as the maximum rate that they can do it. So there is going to be a public on
It's
the
capped at 10.
Correct.
It's got to be advertised for 30. Michael Payne has already indicated it's going to happen. He's going to vote in favor.
Yeah.
Sina McGill has indicated she's going to vote in favor.
Sure.
Juan Diego Wade comes from the school board,
Sure.
where he was a 10-year plus school board member. The tax rate increase is strictly to fund school reconfiguration. Interestingly, and I'm curious of your take on this, the 10-cent real estate tax rate increase still is not enough to do other capital improvement projects for some time.
Yeah.
So we're probably looking at a tax rate increase maybe next year and the year after.
Yeah. So everybody understands this. This process is the three-sided triangle, right? So the rate is just one part of that. We've talked about this before. The other side of it is the budget. That's what we're talking about now. What is our operational budget? What is our CIP budget? What are we allocating on that? And then the third part of that triangle, which has already been established as far as the city is concerned, is what the assessed values are. So this is the total value number. This is the rate. You divide that by 100, times it by the new rate, equals X. But we did an analysis, which would be interesting to get your take on this, Scott. We did an analysis, I can't remember, was it Friday that we did? Well, whatever it was last week or the beginning of this week.
It was last Friday.
Was last Friday,
Yeah.
Thank you. That we did an analysis, and we just arbitrarily took a home that was in $200 and something thousand. This, if everything is all staying equal at this stuff, that particular individual is going to be paying $40 a month more. That's at that $200,000 mark.
Which is non-existent.
Which is that's
Well, that's a tax assessed value, not purchase, not market value. This is what their tax assessed value is on that end of it. So with the increase of the 30% on that particular individual, the 10 cents increase for that particular individual, and the budget staying flat, right? That's an extra $40 a month.
So how does that impact what you do, Scott?
so that $40, depending on the borrower, could
All
be
the difference
key
in the
to qualifying and not qualifying. Then I've got somebody who I'm going to bring on the show at some point from an insurance side on when he gets a call going, okay, I know what you quoted them for an annual premium. How can we cut that in half?
So if it's a $400,000 house,
Yeah,
that's roughly
so-
$80 or particularly $100 depending on value and all that stuff. And even at a $400,000 tax assessed value, an extra $100 a month is a big nut.
Yeah. I mean, depending on what their level, especially level of income, that $40 or what their current debt load looks like, that could be a deal breaker into whether or not they qualify for the home.
So I think the point Jerry's trying to make, taxes are going up, interest rates are going up. I'm bringing a client towards you that
Assessments have gone up.
assessments has
Assessments are
gone
going
up,
up.
but I'm bringing a client to you when you're doing your pre-approval letter on that end of it. You take into consideration what the tax.
What the taxes, for instance, also on new construction. So
Oh, that's a
new
great
construction
question.
where the borrower's dealing with a land value assessment only, I'm going in and choosing to either use the contract price or 80% of contract price to create the new tax value, because you'll get a title company that'll come back and say, they'll give, the value of the $50,000 lot as what they're budgeting into the taxes. Well, the borrower is going to get through a year or less than a year. They're going to have an assessment that's going to come in, and then their escrow account is going to be short, $2,000 that they're going to be having to pay back into before the next 6-month premium.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because that's a misconception on new construction, right? Because what'll happen is that you're 100% right. At the end of the next year, they're going to take a look at what
Yeah.
you bought that home for, and guess what? That's going to be the tax assessed value for that home, and then you're 100% right. All of a sudden, you're going to, if you don't hire a trusted advisor and you have your calculations right, I'm going to get a phone call and say, oh, by the way, you got to put in another couple of $1,000.
You won't even get a phone call. You'll get a new monthly mortgage statement saying that your payment's gone up $300 because you're having to pay the
But don't you have to
difference.
fund that escrow account?
Yeah, you're
Sure.
funding the escrow.
Yeah. No, I'm saying, so I'm not saying at closing. I'm saying you've closed on your house. You're 6 months into this house that
I
you
got it.
own,
I got it.
and then you get a new.
That's the norm.
Yeah, then you get a noise calling you. They're just going to say, "Oh, look, this came in. Looks like you're short. $2,000. We're going to." Increase your mortgage payment $300 a month until you're caught up.
Yeah, and that's a wake-up call. How about this one?
Do they ever go backwards once you caught up? Because I don't know if that ever really happened.
So I know there are counties who have reduced their.
No, sir. So I just get this notification.
Talking about filling up the escrow account.
So if it's overpaid, you can only be overpaid within a certain margin. I think they have to refund you anything greater than $50 difference. Of whatever.
With interest?
No.
Hell no.
But the point I'm trying to make is this is why it's so important to have a trusted advisor to calculate what it might be so you understand what it is. Because if you're short, your payment's going to go up by that $300 a month. When it's funded, they're not going to lower your payment. Your payment's going to stay the same. They're just going to give you a check.
But this is after the trusted advisor contact.
Yes.
Got it.
He's saying this is when the municipality raises the rate. That's what you're saying, right?
100%. I'm saying that you go in and somebody calculated off just the land only tax value,
got it.
put a payment in place, then the county comes in, they give you your new assessment. Your property is not worth $50,000, Mr. Borrower, it's worth $550,000. That's what we're taxing you on, or $380,000. And then so $380,000 in Albemarle County is what, roughly $4,000 annual premium?
Yeah. How about this follow-up question? How many refinances...
Or would be with this new...
How many refinances are inspired or motivated by tax rate increases or assessment increases?
So that's a phone call that I do with clients going, hey, it looks like your taxes may have gone up. Do you want to see how we can reduce your payment?
You reach out?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Very cool. I did not know that. How about this? In New York, you can see tax relief on your property. Is that the same here? Remember, I'm a New Yorker, and a $30K real estate tax bill is the norm in Long Island.
Oh my
Why
God.
do you think all those New Yorkers arrived here during the pandemic?
Well, that one-way trip down has been going on since 1987.
That's you.
As long as I've been doing it.
That's definitely, that's you.
That's literally
Yeah.
me, my family, multiple people, because
Queens?
Brooklyn, Long Island, that kind of thing. But the family's coming. But that's exactly right. Why do you think Lake Monticello is a little Long Island?
Yeah.
Little New Yorker.
They
'Cause
literally advertised it in the newspapers in New York.
That's what they did. So that $30,000 tax rate, by the way, is nothing new, right? Maybe the dollar amount wasn't that, but that was bringing it down on that. But what was the question? Because I kind of lost
The
it.
question is, in New York, you can see tax relief on your property.
Got it.
Is that the same here?
Yeah, so there are, in the city of Charlottesville, all the jurisdictions, if you have certain income in certain circumstances or age, there are tax relief programs. You have to reach out to your local jurisdictions to find out what's applicable where you live.
Here's another interesting tidbit that's flying under the radar. Because assessments have increased so much in the city of Charlottesville, nearly 12% of the rooftops in Charlottesville now no longer qualify for tax relief because the property has increased in value so much.
So the tax relief, just to jump in real quick, the tax
Please.
relief is also property value, but it's also who lives in it, right?
Income.
What's their income, right? On
Or some veterans qualify
That's exactly
to
right.
not have to pay county taxes. And that's something that is not going to be included with me at closing. That's something post-closing you have to reach out to the county
Yeah,
for.
generally, that's 100% disability.
Yeah.
But you get there.
Nicholas Erpy, loves Scott's quips. Great addition to the weekly round table. This guy's on point. Hearing that from others.
Thank you,
Christopher
sir.
Eagle, welcome to the broadcast. Mustache Dan Pettit, we love you, DP. Real Estate 3. At what point do people who purchase or lease leave our area, especially the city of Charlottesville, and move to other counties as things keep going up?
So we were talking about that, and as Dan was talking, I'd love to throw that question back at him. What does he see this 10% increase?
I think that's kind of a to be determined. All right, let's look at all the things that have happened in the last 24 months. I was talking about a property that I personally have that has increased in value. To me, a fiction, like, I don't even believe that it's real. But let's say
You're
that
saying it's paper value.
Well, it's not paper value. If the people who are out here, part of it,
You should tell them, give them the outline of everything.
so part of it could be, I'm not going to get into that, but the paper value, I think, could be is if we had if there was a mass migration, we would see the value, if all the inventory just all of a sudden came on the market at the new
let's
inflated
define
price.
paper value, right? So for the sake of
As estimate.
Okay, got it.
Paper value is.
Got it. I just needed him to quantify it.
Okay.
It's how do you quantify paper value? It's not liquid. It's not true value until someone writes you an offer.
Yeah, so
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. So
a zestimate, a guesstimate, a
Yeah,
CMA.
An assessment.
All that does not mean anything until
You get an offer.
and a contract is slid across.
Correct.
Now, let's say enough people said, hey, you know what? My property's increased 30% in the last, and I've been in it for 7 years. What if I could sell this house and build a house or move into an outlying area where the taxes weren't as high?
Nelson County.
That could be an inventory driver, and that's why your people, if there's non-real estate people watching, that you're getting mailers and phone calls and all of these things.
We're getting knocks on our door.
Knocks on your door.
Cold call knocks on our door.
I advise
I'm in my boxers and nothing else.
I advised a young agent. I was like, you know, they might be as surprised as you are.
I think they
That was
were.
a mental picture I did not need.
I've
8:30
suggested.
in the morning on a Saturday.
Wow,
That's aggressive.
That's a motivated.
So,
Yeah.
so don't
I like that. By the way, if whoever that was is out there watching, I want to work with you. You're my people.
well.
Scott, I love Scott.
So it's interesting. Does your association have a no solicitation policy?
Well, not if they live in the neighborhood.
Oh,
Yeah, the neighborhood does, unless they live in the neighborhood.
that's interesting.
That's one of the reasons. So Rick Randolph is a board of supervisor.
Sure.
Rick Randolph lives in the neighborhood.
Knocked on doors and they let him.
In the neighborhood. That's a huge market advantage
Sure.
for someone not in the neighborhood. When you
Sure.
have 840 rooftops in the
Sure.
neighborhood and 1.6 people per rooftop are voting.
So this is why HOAs matter. This is why reading HOA documents matter. So
I'm not living in an HOA.
Yeah, he doesn't live in an HOA. He's HOA over here.
yeah, you've got
I'm
like
HOA.
pigs
HOA
and
knows what
goats
you
Yeah,
and
yeah.
whatever. God
I'm
only
just
knows
an old
what you-
redneck. I've got no interest in that.
whatever you have. I don't know.
He's got a what do we call it? A farmat?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I was almost going to call you a gentleman farmer, but then I decided
Okay.
not.
He's
That
a gentleman farmer.
I think that's setting the bar too high.
I think that's
the gentleman part, for sure. The farmer part, maybe, and all that stuff. But yeah, that's an important thing to take a look at that because, if you don't want to be annoyed, there is a...
We should figure that he was making a point before we rudely interrupted
Yeah.
Scott Morris about paper value and the property you were referencing.
So I think I got through that with if enough people decided that the value was there, and whether it was moving to a new build in one of these outlier counties with a better, a lower tax rate, or just deciding that if they were moving out of state, whatever the situation for them specifically was, I think that could be a great motivator. But if enough of that started to take place,
Inventory opening.
inventory opens,
Yeah,
that
but-
the paper value goes away.
So
This is so hypothetical.
So it's not even hypothetical. It's just moving this apple around, right? So we only have one apple, and the apple's maybe moving here and there.
It's a shell game.
Well, it's not so much that; it's that if we need to make more apples, right?
100%. Yeah, that's
Right.
That's
so
yeah.
if we're
the
not
bell that gets rung on every show. Yeah,
excuse me.
the bell that gets rung on
The
every
bell
show.
that gets rung on every show that we're going to keep on trying to ring it, and hopefully on Friday we're going to have two rock stars.
The bell
to help
does
us.
get rung on
The
every
bell does get rung on every show.
And I hope that there's progress being made
Yeah.
with that. But my friend,
Well, I'm not even talking about housing affordability. I'm just talking about increase in inventory.
you're talking about
Yeah.
new inventory.
Yeah. So picking up on the lead, we'll switch on to a different topic on that end of it. But to answer Dan's question, I just think you're going to see people moving around. It's kind of like if UVA decides to bring second-year students into UVA, it's not going
On grounds.
On grounds, thank you.
Yeah.
It's not going to. I don't think it's going to have a huge increase of anything. It's just people that are from outside are going to move in. It's just you're not going to see a huge increase of inventory. It's just going to move stuff around a little bit.
This is an interesting topic, and this is coming up with me now. And we'll get to these other comments from agents, guys, here in a matter of moments. Rental property, 3-4 bedroom. You can only have 4 people in Albemarle County that are not family members.
That's correct.
In one unit or rooftop or house.
Same in Charlottesville, by the way.
Same in Charlottesville. Only 4. I don't know if maybe you got reached out to about this topic or question recently.
I may have.
Okay, so what if that was relaxed a little bit?
Well, that's kind of
and more were allowed to be in one unit.
okay.
As opposed to them taking up other inventory.
So a lot of that has to do with building codes, fire safety. It's a lot more than just code from the county perspective. But that's why this conversation about the future land use map and the next steps on rezoning, then what you can do is you can create more density within that one parcel or that one unit. Excuse me. But there's a whole conversation about that, you know, if you're going to take what they call a 4-square home, right, it's 2 stories on that end of it, put an apartment downstairs, an apartment upstairs, and put 4 in one and 4 in the other one. There's so many building code requirements and fire requirements, it's going to take a bit of time to do that. On the other hand, I can tell you from firsthand experience, if you would go around some of those.
Oh my gosh, it's happening right now.
Yeah, there's.
Yeah, especially
nobody.
around Browns.
Nobody. That rule is not observed quite regularly.
Yeah, 100%, and there's no real way to enforce it. How about this one for?
The only way to enforce it is if you have a neighbor next door that. I was going to say.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah, drops a dime.
I was going to say it. I was going to say
Karen.
I was going to say a dime.
On Mortgage Wars. Albemarle, this comment. Albemarle has never wanted any smokestack or big industries in our area. We have Route 64, and over the mountain has 64 and 81, and all these areas will continue to grow, and more commuter traffic coming into UVA and Charlottesville. We are driving middle class out of purchasing in our area. And the follow-up is, are there many clients of Scott's that HOA fees keep them from qualifying for home purchases?
That's a great question.
Yeah, sure. Depending on there's an area in between myself and Fredericksburg, Locust Grove, that has so for the inventory level price point, very high HOAs. So you'll see people who I've given a pre-approval to, send me something, and we have it's like, hey guys, let's make sure this really, really works before we, dive in at $300 a month in an HOA on a $300,000 property.
How much?
$300 a month.
Good Lord.
That's not uncommon.
It's not Northern Virginia.
Yeah, for this area, it's not. It's less than common.
That's between here and Northern Virginia, though, right?
Between me and Fredericksburg, but
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
not a market that I think might.
Yeah.
be.
What is the highest HOA you guys have ever seen in Central Virginia?
So are we saying HOA or condo fees? We're separating the two?
Okay, very good question.
Yeah.
Good follow. Why don't we call them both? Highest condo fee and highest HOA you've seen.
So that $300 number
Is the highest you've ever seen?
No, is more of a normal condo fee.
Sure, I've seen, and in Richmond, there's some $399
Got it.
condo fees.
Around here, like at Lake Monticello is like $80 or $90 a month or something like
Mine's
that.
85.
Yeah, so someplace like Lake Monticello, that kind of thing, $100, $150 a month, something like that. But it really depends on the service, right, that they provide. Some like if they cut the grass and all that's kind of great stuff, that number's a little bit higher. In Lake Monticello, which they don't do that on that end.
You're talking homeowners grass.
Correct. That's exactly right.
What is the highest you've seen? HOA.
I think that $300 is probably that two,
Yeah.
or I think it might be $285.
So that was a normal, straight up
Yeah.
HOA. Wow.
That's astronomical.
I assumed it was a condo of some sort.
Jamie Turner, rep the PEP, Jamie Turner, the mayor of Gordonsville, just moved to Culpeper, moved into this house last month in Culpeper.
Awesome.
I got a letter in the mail asking to sell yesterday.
Yeah.
Look, you just put it on the comments right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the norm now.
That's
Well, that's what's happening.
Do what you got to do.
Well, somebody. Of course, whoever is sending that stuff out doesn't know that he just purchased. They're blasting everybody in that zip code.
Yeah, they're asking a zip code. William Clark, thank you for sharing the show. The question you get most regularly, Scott, what do we expect rates to be this summer?
So I'm gonna simplify this question with look at the U.S. 10-year and double that, and that's going to be your rule of thumb for your 30-year mortgage.
Going forward.
In general,
Got
typically, it certainly wasn't the case when we were at 75.75 on the U.S. 10-year. We were in the twos, but we're in the higher twos. We were like 2.4 30-year fixed. But assuming right now, good credit, we're 1.9, we're 3.8. So U.S. 10-year 1.9, 30-year fixed mortgage 3.8. So
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb for everybody to kind of keep in the back of their mind. If you want to, again, it's not situation specific, credit specific. It's just kind of, it gives you a good idea of what things look like. Take a look at what
if you're like a great credit score.
Now,
and all that
with
stuff.
that said, there are people out there, and I said, all the smart guys in the room, wherever that room is, had said that inflation wasn't coming, and it came faster, went higher than we expected.
The one that's transitory?
The transitory one, and I'm saying that, and I'm standing behind, I think this could go higher and faster than predicted when it comes to the U.S. 10-year, driving rates and other factors, mortgage-backed securities, et cetera. But I think that there's now people calling for 3% on the U.S. 10-year. If that's the case,
That's 6%.
that's 6% for a 30-year fixed.
Plecker says, Michael Plecker, we love you. One of the Valley's finest
Mr.
catchers
Pantops.
watching the
Oh,
program
yeah.
right now. Played in the New York Mets farm system. He loves when I say that.
I know he loves it.
I enjoy
I did not know that. That's an amazing
Oh, yeah,
factoid.
yeah.
Michael Plecker was a catcher in the Mets farm system.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the finest backstops to come out of the Valley. Plecker right now is smiling right there.
I think he caught for Strawberry.
Okay.
Well, no, Strawberry was an outfielder.
So if he was in the,
Who was?
You're thinking Doc Gooden.
That's it. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
so is that like the
It's
Toledo?
terrifying that we can complete each other's
Is that
sentences.
like the Toledo Mud Hens? Is that?
I don't know. That's a good question. Plecker, was it which team in the farm system did you play
Oh, if
for?
it turns out to be the Toledo Mud Hens, I'm going to have a ton of fun with that.
Okay, good.
He says it's still like borrowing free money, even as these rates uptick.
Yep.
But is that the case at 6%?
I mean, 6% is still. I mean, my first place was 6 1/8.
Yes.
So that's the normal rate, I would think.
But along with that, we also, take inflation in mind, keep inflation in mind. Look at all the other factors. It's going to affect people's purchasing power, and it's going to affect housing prices eventually. The housing prices are going to move slower than rates will, but over time, it's going to affect who's going to qualify for what and how many of what.
So that inflation will impact new construction way more than existing. So
Yeah, I agree with that.
New construction will inflate in price point much faster, which is typical anyway, than existing. I've always predicted, I think you're going to see existing kind of level back out. I think you're starting to see this, a 3 to 6% year over year increase, which is what I would consider normal. You'll see much more, a higher double-digit increase because just materials are just going skyrocket.
Joanne has got a good head for business here.
She got an MBA. She should.
All right, she is a smart cookie here. Is the HOA is not tax deductible? Also, what is the financial health of the organization supplying the services? Look at those Miami condos with foundation deteriorations. Yikes, and those are big assessments on the horizon. And remember, energy costs are not calculated into inflation, so it is really higher than we are being told.
Yeah, so is there, what's the real inflation?
And what's the inflation that you and I and people on the street are actually feeling?
When you fill up your vehicle, when it's $10 a gallon more to fill up your vehicle.
The pack of bacon
Or
at the grocery store.
Exactly right. But the HOA comment is very interesting. When we hand the HOA package to our clients, we make sure that please sit down and read the budgets. Please sit down and look at the fiscal health of the organization that you're in, because look at the reality. If they don't have enough money to fix the roads, this isn't going to VDOT to fix the roads. This is this community that needs to repair the roads or do whatever they need to do with it. So it is super important. That's the reason why the state gives you a certain amount of days to review the documents on that end of it. Please look at the budget. A lot of people go to rules and regulations, which is great, but look at the budget. That's a great comment.
With an 830 credit score versus 700 credit score, what's the difference in rate, all other things being equal?
Good question.
So, rate tiers, you're certainly better in the 800s than you are, say, 720, but as you're moving up from 600 to 640, 660, 680, 700, 720, the breaks get smaller and smaller, and the break between 720 and 800 is not that significant typically. At that point, you're probably still talking about roughly the same rate comparison, and the cost is less than a quarter, so 25%, or so assuming less than 100 bips difference being 25. So break this out simply at $300,000 loan amount, 720 and 800, you're probably $1,000 difference in rate or less between 720 and 800 credit.
Love the integration of LinkedIn. The questions are excellent from LinkedIn. This via DM on LinkedIn. Please ask Scott if he's seeing more deals come across his desk from a new construction standpoint with inventory being so tight.
So I see more people looking at new construction. How much how much of it's available for people to purchase is its own problem.
What does that mean?
So how many builders are supporting the inventory to, if you've got a guy who's doing 30 homes and hasn't broken ground or even had a realtor list 25 of them, and he's got 5 of them that are in contract, under process, that sort of thing. Depending on the size of the builder, they have to be able to keep up with this level of demand. So yes and no. I work with a specific builder, Jefferson Home Builders. They'll probably do 40-ish homes this year. And
that's a lot.
Yeah, and they'll go in and get lots, permits, everything approved, get it listed, and they'll do, say, 5 to 10 of them at a time. And
so they're doing specs.
Yeah. And in doing that 5 or 10 of them at a time, they'll have those under contract in a 30-day period.
So there's two things going.
Jesus.
Yeah, and they'll have them before they get the foundation.
Oh, yeah. No, what I'm saying is they haven't broken ground on them. They may have cleared a lot, and they've done all the prep work to get started. Realtor goes out, puts the listings live. In 30 days, those 10 are.
So that's a paper house that's going under contract?
Oh yeah. And that is a unique thing. I mean, back in the day when we were doing that number of homes, I wish I had
that kind of traction.
That kind of traction. But that's very strategically done, as you well know.
Yeah, 100%.
It's done for a couple of reasons.
Because if they did all 40 of them at a time and they got them all under contract, and then then you're dealing with your poor expectation management.
Yeah, they're screwed.
Yeah, how come we're not first?
Well, you've got that part of it, but from the builder's perspective, you also got the business side.
Line up the subs.
Yeah. There's a lack of inventory. Oh, by the way, I don't want to sell too far ahead of me, because part of the problem with the spec end of it, on the paper end of it, Jerry,
So what happened last year is some of these homes that they were already under contract on, and they faced a 100% lumber price increase in the span of 60 days before they'd even put lumber on the ground. That's eating into that bottom line. So
that language wasn't in the contract?
You're talking about escalate. Typically, a speculative home, such as what a company that we're talking, or what I would call a production home, does not have that language in it.
But how can that language not be under contract when the homes are selling at a paper house format?
So they agreed to a contract price. They're going to build a house and sell it to you they're not doing a construction loan. There's none of that there. But what also happened to their benefit was, so on that series of homes, they ate some of it. But they also went in and took 10 of them that were coming on, pulled them off, put them back on.
That's exactly
with
right.
The increase.
With a different price point.
And
So
then the lumber price had come back down, and so their obstacle was, how do we get these to appraise at this, since every one of the ones that we've built just like it is back at this price point. So 1 or 2 of them they had to struggle on, and then everyone after that was done.
So what they're doing is they're managing.
That's a great topic.
They're managing the market, right? So they're managing the market between how they're putting. That's what I was trying to get at. This is very strategic. Putting off on that to manage the market, to get the appraisals to kind of go through that on that kind of thing. And then there's the practical part of it. They don't want to outsell their production capacity. That's the first thing. And the second thing goes, if I sell all 40 in 30 days, what the heck am I going to do next year? Right? Because as we beat to death on our Real Talk, they're not approving more subdivisions, right? So if they're not approving more subdivisions, where am I going in 2023?
Yeah. Or then so the land price increases to say so we're not doing we're not talking about subdivisions. We're talking about somebody who goes out, maybe buys 30 acres, busted into 4 or 5 acre lots with the road and everything else in the situation there, and then all of a sudden those 30 acre lots are, now selling for $750,000. How did they then break that up and make it a realistic price point?
So the builder that does that, the
purchasing?
developer does what Jerry's talking about. They are baking in their escalator clauses in the contract, but the production.
Well, I'm just speaking from
Sure, but
I'm speaking from
Sure.
our client.
on a certain level, they're going to hit a ceiling, because what are they going to be able to sell to a non-cash borrower? What are they going to actually be able to finance a property for? Cost all in.
So the major difference between your
It's the production and custom.
correct, and the major difference is on your client's perspective, and what we're talking about now is who owns the land. So on your client's perspective, the property or the land is owned by somebody other than them, other than that, right? So this is a whole straight custom contract or renovation contract, very different. But when you do like a Stanley Martin Rye and Liberty Homes, all this stuff, they push these things out. And part of the reason why they can do it this way is depending on the size of it, they're buying lumber on margin, 90 days out, 120 days out. So that's part of what, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds on this, but that's generally how that goes.
Where the small guy's not doing that.
Yeah, I tell
So
you,
the small guy's got the escalation in there to protect his tail.
absolutely. I'll tell you, one of the things that excites me the most, and we're actually bringing a couple of small builders on in March to have this conversation on Real Talk. It went from the time of great unpleasantness where all the small to medium guys just went away. And that's starting to come back now. You're starting to be able to, look, if you want a custom home or you want something built, there are folks out there that'll do that. 10 years ago, 8 years ago, there wasn't that many.
5 years ago. So I have people who people who are brand new to the process. They're like, I want to build a custom home. I'm like, have you talked to an architect yet? And they're like, what? Have you gone to an architect, got plans for this house, then taken those plans to a builder and said, hey, Mr. Builder, how much is it going to cost to build this home? Most builders, at least, let's say 5 years ago, would have said, we're not going to build you that house.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Because we're going to build this house because we know how much this house costs to build. Or
exactly right.
look at one of these 4 other houses that are similar in style that
We'll
we
move
have
the wall
built.
here or something like that, yeah.
We'll do that because they could get into this custom project, and then the cost could exponentially increase because for a number of reasons. Maybe the architect didn't do a perfect job of telling everybody exactly where things were going to be.
I also think that the market has a misconception of what a custom home is.
So
The market often thinks that, and we love Stanley watches this.
Yeah,
we
sure.
love Stanley.
Sure.
Stanley has a handful of floor plans
That's exactly
that you're picking from.
And you pick option A, option B.
Yeah, now
option
you're
C.
picking some finishes at the end,
Sure.
but that's not a custom home.
So I have a medium custom home builder and a brand new custom builder coming on. We're trying to schedule the thing. That's literally what we want to talk about, is how that process works with that, because it's a very two different worlds and process on it. Yeah, you're 100% right. One of the ones we're going to bring actually has his own in-house architect, has his own in-house design team that goes ahead and work. The other one actually happens to be an architect, also a builder. So we're going to have that conversation of what that looks
And why is that advantageous? You should explain that for the viewers and listeners.
So it's advantageous for 2 reasons, and I don't wish to offend any of my dear architect friends on that end of it. But traditionally what happens is sometimes an architect will design something, they don't necessarily have the nickels and dimes on what it's going to cost, and then it gets redone. So if you use a builder that has an in-house architect or an in-house design service in it, it's more current on it. On pricing. Does that make sense? So we don't want to design something, bring it to a builder, and the builder goes, okay, this is $50,000, $100,000, $500,000 more than you're prepared to spend.
So that support beam that's going to span 80 feet across this entire thing is going to cost this much, and here's how much the crane's going to be to put that thing
versus,
in place.
hey, let's move a wall over here and take all that away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah,
description.
and so a design build firm this is what we're talking about, generally helps you with that. I do not want to discount my architects friends. They're great. I love them all to death. But it depends on what the client wants.
All right, so this question from Sarah, who's watching. Sarah Robinson watching. I believe this is your first interaction. Please let us know, Sarah, on any of our talk shows. So a custom home is going to start at what price point then? I mean, you're probably looking at over $1 million.
Yeah, so it depends on...
With the dirt.
I'll let Scott tackle that.
I mean, how many square feet? I mean, that makes a difference.
She's
too.
asking Albemarle County specifically.
Yeah, so I can tell you a custom home in Albemarle County
It's
will
over $1 million.
We'll have a 1 in front of it.
Yeah.
We'll have a 1 in front of it.
Yeah. And it's probably, I mean, you guys are the experts here. I mean, it's probably not low one. I mean, you're probably looking at 1.1, 1.2 and above. I mean, some of these homes that are custom that are selling in Old Trail on 0.09 are at that price point.
And they're not full customs either.
Yeah, and then that goes back to this is one of 5 floor plans.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So
Which
a
finishes would
true
you like?
custom design build.
And they're selling all day, every day
Yeah.
at that price.
If you roll in, dirt and build, it's really hard to make $1 million work in Albemarle County right now. Now, it could, there could be pockets that 800 works or something like that.
Not in Albemarle.
Well, maybe like Skylaway
Scottsville,
or Scottsville, that kind of thing. But then you need to find a builder who's willing to go there, right? And that's the bigger struggle on it. If you can find a lot and all that stuff. So this is part of the show that we want to talk, that I'm putting together on that, because this requires 2 folds on it. We have to talk about land purchase contracts and how that actually works, and how you can protect yourself with feasibility studies, and how do you negotiate with a builder, and how does a builder interact in that process. So that's a whole show into itself on that end of it, or series of shows on that end of it. But
this is Plecker's response. Michael Plecker, good contributions today, sir. And Michael Plecker, if memory serves correctly, worked for a builder.
He knows a little bit about new construction.
Yeah, he
very
knows
much
new
so.
construction very well.
He-
He says, my first question when someone says I want to build a custom home is, what's your highest budget number? Then I start backing out the cost of the dirt, the architect, site development, etc. Most times they end up with enough money to build 1,000 square foot home.
Yeah. So what Mr. Plecker is 100% right on that end of it, because when you're doing these customs and you have a 10-acre lot, 5-acre lot, 2-acre lot somewhere, do I have power on it? What's the well?
I mean, I have this conversation on the complete opposite spectrum of someone who says, I'm gonna put a double wide out here. I'm like, okay, cool. $275,000 is probably your number, land all in. And,
That's assuming you got sewer. That's assuming you don't have to run power.
I'm including that in kind of like a,
Ballpark.
That's a ballpark.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't know, particularly these co-ops, right? You've got to dig the ditch. You only get so many linear feet of line free. After that, if you're over a certain amount, depending on the jurisdiction, you've got to pay for the linear feet of the line.
I saw somebody quoted $25,000 from Verizon to run cable to the house.
That's
in
exactly
the past
right.
couple weeks.
I didn't even get the cable. But that's
Now,
exactly
mind you, I am somebody who, not as your lender, but as your friend, I'll get a ditch switch. We're gonna get this done, buddy.
You'll do it for 15, right?
That's right. That's right.
Maybe 10.
Scott Morris, you may close a deal with that. You better be careful, sir. You're too busy to do that.
You might be on a ditch.
Yeah,
I can speak from a personal perspective. He can do that.
I have no doubt
done it
he can
before.
do that.
He's actually did it for me multiple
I have
times.
no doubt he can do that. No doubt. How about the townhome piece that's coming in here? Is that why we'll see more townhomes in Albemarle and Charlottesville because the dirt's too expensive?
You have seen and will continue to see more townhomes because the dirt is so expensive. Density matters.
It's more advantageous for the builder who's got the funds to do it.
So if I've got a 100-foot wide lot that's going to put one, that's why this whole missing middle conversation is so important, which I'm sure we're going to have with Neil and Ned on Friday, is so important. That 100-foot wide lot, instead of putting one house on it, I can put 4 20-foot wide duplexes, townhomes on it, and put 4 families in there instead of 1. It's just the math. I'm running the same amount of road, I'm running the same amount of sewer for 4 versus 1.
This question's a good one, Stephen. Excellent question. How is the small builder going to manage interest rate increases?
So The small builder is probably going to be working with someone who's going to be getting a construction loan. With the small builder, and this is a question for a builder, I don't want to dive too deep into this, but I'd say wouldn't their problems probably be more related to inflation, labor, and material costs?
Cost of goods.
Yeah. So as a recovering builder, that's exactly the right answer. Because at the end of the day, if Jerry is building a custom home with Scott and you build 4 a year or 5 a year, you're not even going to start until Jerry has his construction perm done. You know exactly how you're going to get paid.
From my experience, the guy who's doing 4 a year, and this isn't every guy, there's certainly people out there who are going to build you.
Guy or girl.
Guy or gal. There's somebody who comes to mind that does a fantastic super high-end home, and they probably they do a handful of them a year. But a lot of those guys are still going to be back to, look, here's the couple floor plans I'm comfortable doing, because that guy can't afford to lose his ass.
It's funny, just to stay on this topic for a while, I had a conversation with a small builder and a client trying to put them together. I haven't seen this in a long time, but we're now looking at cost plus.
Tell them what cost plus is.
So cost plus contracts are exactly what it is. We're getting the house designed by an architect. We're making a relationship with the builder that everybody wants to do it. They're giving them, this is a budget. This is what I think it's going to cost. But what it's going to cost you is whatever it cost me plus 30%. Because of inflation, because everything, because the small builder doesn't want to take that risk, right? So if the market is such that there's enough new construction going out there, as soon as that changes, this whole cost plus thing is going to go out the window. But at the moment, I get asked all the time, please, why'd you build me a house? First of all, I don't want to, because it's just crazy. I'm having too much fun doing this. But if I was ever to do one, it would be a cost plus.
And he still has his Class A.
I've had it since 1987.
So, and also, not just that, but even on a renovation loan, you're still building in the what if 10%. Maybe not 30%, but you're building in the additional, what if this goes longer? What if we run into something inside of the home? There's a whole set of problems.
And a cost plus is usually cash, by the way.
Yeah.
The follow-up question from Steve.
Because you're not going to land on a cost plus.
Correct.
The follow-up question from Steven on the builder topic clearly has traction here on LinkedIn is, then ask Scott, how does the family that's looking to build the home manage increased interest rates over the lifespan of building a home? He's basically saying it's if rates continue to go up, and it takes how long to build a custom home? 9 months?
No.
A year?
I would figure a year right now.
So if the rate, Stephen, I hope I'm getting to the root of your question. If the rates are increasing like they're doing,
then budget for the worst case scenario.
Okay, how do you do that?
What about a lock-in? Can I lock in?
So,
That's a good question.
So yes, you can lock in
how much?
a year out. You're going to pay typically at least 1%, if not more. For a year, you're probably paying close to 2%.
So
2% of the total deal?
Yeah.
Of the loan.
Of the loan.
Of the loan.
That's substantial.
So it's 1 to 2 points.
Yeah.
Roughly. But that's a one-time fee, right? That doesn't get your rate doesn't go up 1 or 2
No,
points.
and you could adjust down.
Is that worth it?
It depends on when you think the rate's going to go.
How about this? I've got somebody who locked for 180 days late last year. It's going to be worth it to him.
So if we're at 3, just to pick a number, and we think we're going to be at 6, 12 to 18 months from now,
or even 4.5.
4.5, it'll be worth it. It's a conversation I'm having with my potential buyers, particularly first-time home buyers, because you can kind of, and this is a great topic to talk about, you can kind of use what's called seller closing costs or seller concessions, right? Which, certain loans allow you to go to 3% or 6%, depending on what it is, but you can roll into this seller concession a rate increase, a rate buy down on that end of it, so that your so ultimately, when your purchase price, this 1 point or 2 points is rolled into the purchase price, but your interest rate stays at 3 or whatever it is. Did that make any sense?
Yeah. So what Keith's saying is, let's say that you got with the builder, and the builder agreed to sell the house for 2% more. And then he's going to credit you 2% back. So he's basically saying, you do this and we'll protect the rate for you. And
Thank you.
Here's how we
Thank
do
you
it.
for doing a better job of that.
A different job. I didn't do a better job.
Why don't we talk about seniors here? Are seniors being priced out of the market? They want a first floor master on a townhome and can only afford a $400,000 budget. It seems like that's not an option in this area.
You can do that out in Island. I think if they got any left, there's a couple at Island Hill out in Fluvanna County, around the 400 mark plus or minus, first floor master on that end of it, and you'll see some new product coming around Lake Monticello and some of these by right subdivisions that are coming in there. You know, the builders are targeting that price point and that buyer, but there's a few opportunities out there.
Grayson, for Scott, when does inventory become a concern for folks in the mortgage business? We know it's a concern for realtors. How about folks in the mortgage business?
It's a concern for everybody. It's a concern for borrowers.
It's a concern for me. I'm
yeah.
in branding. Literally, we're all on this damn supply chain.
I don't know. I mean, and it's also, the bigger question is for, those who built their business around refinances only. They're probably not having good times. I don't know. It's something that I don't even think about because I'm willing to expand my territory to accommodate whatever I'll outwork any problem that gets in front of me. So that's a question for the person who doesn't feel that way.
And I can testify to that. You will outwork it. So one of the things that
Joanne, not all seniors are destitute. Give us a break. We have teeth and shoes, and we're not eating Spam.
I thought that whole senior thing was a plug at me, but anyway.
People are interacting on different social platforms based on what we're talking about here on the show. It's amazing.
So I've been tracking mortgage applications as an
indicator.
As an indicator, leading edge. So week over week, how is your applications looking?
Applications are as high as they have been, especially for purchases.
Got it. So you're seeing more this week than last week?
Yes.
So that is a clear indication.
I mean, I'm watching CNBC saying that we're going to see another push of buyers entering the market here that are getting feared or spooked by mainstream media talking rate increase, and this is where Scott gets a little exasperated here.
It's not just that. It's also we're going to continue to see people trying to buy a house because that's what we were faced with statistically going into all this. The 23.8 million millennials coming of age, and now the Zoomers zooming into the housing.
So I'm going to make an exception to my 3 Real Talk rules, right, Jerry? We're allowed to point fingers at the mainstream media.
Yeah.
We can point fingers
Yeah.
at. But yeah, they listening to that, just shut it off and call a trusted advisor and ask what's going on.
Oh man, that was my favorite part right there, the zoom in. Scott Morris.
So mortgage applications are going up.
He just shoots from the hip, and it's
Mortgage applications, yes. And not to mention that, also, I had a 2-week period where hand to God, everybody I was working with just went out and made incredible offers. 10% over, waiving this, waiving that, and we're not the winners. And I puckered up a little bit and had my own feelings, but told them, look, don't get dissuaded, just go out, continue doing this. And then a vast majority of them went out this previous weekend and got under contract.
So
if you're out there and you're going through it, or you're an agent and you're a new agent and you're having to deal with the emotions of your clients who are not getting there, keep trying, you will get there. I know who needs to hear that, but
it's true,
going.
and I think that's important to talk about. I had one happen on Sunday with us. We lost it. It was number 3.
And that's people.
And we're going out today to look at property,
Good.
right? So I think maybe they're shutting off the craziness from the Main Street media, and they're going out and looking, and we're looking, and we'll get there. We'll get one done. We'll cross the finish line.
Gentlemen, fantastic program. 11:30. Any final thoughts for the viewers and listeners? Scott Morris.
That was kind of my final thought. And this is just in general in life. If you're out there going through it, don't stop. Just, dude, it's never as bad as it seems. It's never as good as it seems. Just keep out doing the good work, serving people, doing what you can to do the best for you and your family, and you'll get through it.
That sounds like a 1980s. It's a 1980s song somewhere about "Don't Stop." I can't remember. It's running.
Don't Stop Believing?
That's it. Don't stop.
Journey.
Believing. Journey. There you
Yeah,
go.
Journey.
Don't stop believing. We should change that to our new theme song.
That's right.
For real talk. As always, Scott. Thanks, man, and thanks for what you do, and thank you for taking care of our clients and being that trusted advisor.
Give a plug for Friday.
Yeah. So Friday.
Friday's a big time show.
Yeah. So we've been trying to put this together for a couple of shows, and
Well, I'd say a couple of months.
A couple of months.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, when we started doing this 3 years ago, I didn't realize how hard that was, but that's a hard thing to do, to put people together. So my hats off to Jerry, who does it every day. But we've got Neil Williamson coming on and Ned Galloway with the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors, and we're dubbing it the Neil and Ned Show. So if you, I'm bringing my seatbelt, so
Yeah.
this is going to be fun.
It's going to be
It's going to be
dynamite.
fun. It's going to be fun. And we're just going to have a lot of fun. Again, no pointing fingers unless it's at the media, mainstream media. We're going to change the rules now as I write out my little thing I send out every
Are you
show.
going to put that in the body?
I'm going to put that in the body.
You can point fingers.
You
at
can
the
point to
mainstream
mainstream media.
And you need to stipulate we're localized media here.
I don't care. Let's just say mainstream media, whatever that definition is. Let's put it this way: mainstream media, other than Real Talk.
Other than us. Keith Smith, Yes Realty Partners, Scott Mortgage Morris.
I like it.
That's a great moniker.
There is a
Scott
tattoo
Mortgage
there somewhere
Morris.
for
I've
that.
got,
Of Ross
What do you
Mortgage.
think, huh?
I mean, what's
How does
one
your wife
more?
feel about that?
She's there's nothing I could do that she wouldn't like more than some of the ones I already
No,
have.
I thought you were going to say there's nothing that you would do that would surprise
I
her.
thought that's what he was going to say too. Oh God, I love you guys. Judah Whitcar is the man behind the scenes. He's A+ people. I'm Jerry Miller. This is Real Talk on a Wednesday, presented by Ross Mortgage. Find them online. Reach out to Scott Mortgage Morris, guys, to help make some dreams a reality. And the I Love CVille show is up in 59 minutes. Take care. Well done, amigos.